Pat and Greg.
That's us.
Thank you very much. That was most enjoyable and a bit of a flashback to days of yore. A lot of folk will recognise those songs, but they will also notice that they're quite different. Tell us the story. Why?
They'll obviously hear those recordings and think, I thought I knew that song. That's not the song.
Am I having a trip?
That was the intention, wasn't it?
Put down the bottle.
Yeah.
The whole point of Remote Major to Minor is it's part of a 25th anniversary celebration package, which we thought, how do we celebrate this record, which has brought us a lot of success, brought a lot of people a lot of pleasure. So there's masters in it, and there's video recordings, and there's A-sides and B-sides and rarities. But we thought, why don't we just update the record, and not just update it, do something stupid like put remix it or something like that, but update it lyrically, update it in terms of where we are musically, and also update it in terms of the musicianship, because it's a phenomenon in Hue and Cry at the moment is that quite a few of the musicians that come our way that are much younger than us were inspired by listening to Remote, all the jazz musicians and the funk musicians and the great New York talents that were on that record. So I thought, well, we'll resolutely just use all these people that have been inspired, to some degree, not entirely, but to some degree inspired by what we were pioneering 25 years ago. Well, I just think us and other great bands as well. I mean, Love and Money were in recording with Gary Katz just across the road from us when we were recording Remote. So what we just played there was the 3 versions of familiar songs with either new stories or new emotions updated to them. So Look in Valinda has become Slow Train Home, which is basically another story about a ne'er-do-well, true story that I met on a train coming back from Glasgow to Coatbridge. And this guy was an athlete, I think a martial arts athlete, competed for Scotland, had fallen into hard times, showing me the marks on his arm, and just wanted to dump his story on me at 11:30 on a weekday night, and just fell into my lap as a songwriter, and I wrote it down, same way as I wrote down for Linda. Greg will talk about the music in a minute, but I mean, just the other two very briefly. I mean, Remote was originally about him and I not getting on. We got on fabulously now, so I thought, well, I'm going to write it about. It's basically about the singer's dilemma, basically. So that's what that's about. And then 3 Foot Blast of Fire is an update of a song that was originally about a young South American street urchin story I read in a newspaper, who would basically entertain traffic intersections by blowing fire. So 3 Foot Blast of Fire. And I just updated, just did a wee leap of the imagination and updated them to a 50-year-old urban planner in Buenos Aires or Brasilia or wherever, who's completely dragged himself up from the bottom and is creating this beautiful new municipal transport system. And so that's the story of that song. So we just had and all the way down the line, we just had a ball. We
could never write Love Me Do, could we?
No, but the best one is when I said, right, Greg, we're going to update this song that was originally about the internet in 1988 called The Only Thing. I said, no, we got that prediction right 25 years. Let's predict into the future. And I thought, well, it would be an artificial intelligence, like the Johnny Depp movie Transcendence, guiding a drone and taking out what it decided with the bad guys. I said, how are we going to do this musically, Greg? And I said, can we do it like Daft Punk? Greg looked at me and I said, right. And then I came back and he played me what he'd done, and it was absolutely brilliant.
It's like Daft Punk.
It's called The Only Thing, the drone song. So it's a song of a drone.
Greg, tell us about the musical approach to reworking these songs.
I came up with a stupid idea of doing this record about a year ago. And in theory it sounded like fine. Let's just revisit the album. Pat can write the lyrics 25 years on. I'll play the same chords, absolutely fine.
Bada bing.
So we had 5 false starts. We had a massive fallout. We had frustrations. It wasn't good. And then in here in the studio, we were sitting here one day, and not to get too technical, but every chord has a relative chord. So if you play a C major, A minor is its relative. Every chord has that, so you can really substitute any chord with its relative chord. So jazz musicians use it just to kind of play around with the music. So I did it for Pat, and I played the relative chords for Looking for Linda, and he sang, and it inspired him to write a different lyric.
Completely, yeah.
But the same melody, it's exactly the same melody, but you can change it. And you've got to finesse it a little bit. So once we'd done it for Looking for Linda, I did it for all the songs, and it worked. And my poor musicians, when they were coming in to play it in here, to play in it, they were all confused because they've been playing these songs for 6-7 years. And now it was the same but different.
What have you done?
It was really weird. And then we were rehearsing the other day, and the drummer started playing. He was completely confused that what version are we playing? So now, and it's up to Pat as well. He'll walk on stage and say, I want to play the alternative version, and everybody's got to do a heads up, right? Everybody okay? And then everybody goes, and we get there. So there's now 2 versions of the same album, but the same melody, but different. It was a stupid idea.
I suppose,
but it's a great record. The wonderful thing about pop music is that it's all metaphor and it's all feeling, and the best pop songs are the most ambiguous pop songs. They're the songs that point both ways, and they're the songs that point at the heart. So even something that Labour Love, people thought it was a kind of an anti-Thatcher song. It was actually about a Thatcherite voter struggling with the fact that he kept voting for the Tory party, but it wasn't addressing his pocket, you know. And it was like, why am I doing this, you know? So it was actually trying to understand sympathetically, compassionately, someone who I would be opposed to politically. As for the referendum, I mean, I'm about as ambiguous on that as black versus white, you know. But I was at Margaret MacDonald's, just as an aside, I was at Margaret MacDonald's memorial service, Tears and Snotters. You want to say that for Tears and Snotters? But Jim Sillars, her widower, brought a message from the grave, basically, saying, yea or nay, no matter what the result, whether it's a yes or a no, Scotland has to unite after the result. We have to get together and get on with it, whether it's a no or whether it's a yes. And you know, you didn't argue with Margot when she was alive, and you don't argue with her now when she's gone. So that's where we are. We're opponents, and we disagree, but we're not enemies. So once it's done, once the people decide, then we get together and get on with the rest of Scotland's future, whether it's going to be.